Using Harmony Essentials, we're going to rig together this whole character so that it can walk, talk, jump, run, and whatever other movements you can think of to build your animation. So the first thing we're going to have to do is organize the layers into parent-child relationships. So we're going to take a look at what is happening here and see how everything is organized and constructed. Now, one of the things that we can do is we can verify all of the pivot points to make sure that they have been configured correctly. So as I click through each one of the layers using the Advanced Animation Rotate tool, I can see that the pivot points have been placed in appropriate and logical places. So that's a good first step. Now I'm going to start connecting the different body parts together. So we will add the hand to the lower arm to the upper arm, and we'll repeat that once again, hand to the lower arm to the upper arm. So we can see we have both arms now configured. On the leg, I can bring the foot to the lower leg to the upper leg, and repeat that process again for the other leg. So now I have my limbs configured, I have the torso here, and when I look at that, I can see how the artwork layers have actually now positioned themselves into a better arrangement, because before the hand was on top of the arm, the foot was on top of the leg, so we had some pretty ugly joints occurring at that point. Next, we have the torso. We're going to leave that alone. And then we have the head. And we have the mouth and the eyes that are part of the head. Now, if I move any of these parts, I'm going to run into a problem in that if I add them to the head, so we're going to adjust the view here a little bit so we can see, zoom in a little bit more so we can really understand what is going to happen when we do this. But if I decide that I want these facial features to be children of the head, so if I were to attach them on the head, we'll see how they now disappeared behind it. So that's a little bit problematic. And there's two solutions that we can look at for doing this. One of the solution is that we can add in a control peg as part of this. So we have drawing layers and pegs. I can also click under the plus and we'll see peg is there. It's an option. Command P or Control P on the keyboard will generate one as well. So with that layer selected, I can click here and add a peg. So that adds a control peg for this layer. Now if I zoom out, we'll notice where that pivot point is. The pivot point for the head will have to be set, for the head peg will have to be set. Typically we would put it somewhere around the base of the chin so that if I rotate it, and we can see that the facial features aren't following, the nose is not separated, but just the eyes and mouth, so that we can animate them independently. So now that we've done that, we can even just take all of these layers and add those to the peg as well. And then if I wish to move the head, I can move the peg for it. So it's a control peg instead of moving the individual drawing layer. So that's one solution that we can employ. Another is that we can employ layer nudging. So we can make those facial features children of the head, and we can then nudge them. And both of these techniques are equally valid. So you can work with whichever method you prefer. So I'm just doing undo until we're back to the beginning here. So with that, if I take the eyes and the mouth and I make these children of the head, and then they disappear. So now our character is looking kind of creepy here because we're missing parts. Yeah, that's just a little bit ugly. So we need to nudge it. Now, to perform nudging, what we're doing is we're actually moving the layers in Z space. So if we were looking at our drawing from a top-down view, so if I go and find the face here, we can see that the head is here and the other parts of the face are not on top of it, but are behind the head, which is why we can't see them. If I turn the head off, well, that's kind of creepy too. But we'll put it back on and see. So what we can do is we can nudge our layers in space. And to do that nudging, we are going to have to verify under Preferences that we have enabled Focus on Mouse Enter. Without that, this technique will not work. So in your Preferences, Focus on Mouse Enter, which is what I talked about in a previous video, must be turned on. So that means wherever I move my mouse, we'll see how that focus changes. Because then what we need to do is we need to select each of these layers so that I've selected them, and I want to nudge them. And to nudge them, we think about we're moving them in Z space, and we're going to pull them closer to us. So if we look down at the keyboard, and imagine I'm looking at the arrow keys top down, we'll see there's the up arrow and down arrow. So if we think about comparing it to this top down view of our scene, and if I wanted to, and here, just to give you a sense of what we can do with those selected, I can move them. So I'm moving them and they're now in front. So I've pulled them back in space. So now they actually are sitting in front of our artwork. So we're able to move in an XYZ space coordinate system. The same way that if I took the torso here and pulled the torso in Z, we can see how it's getting closer to the camera. So this triangle is representing our view camera of the scene. And as I move that object, I'm moving it in Z space. So we can see how we're able to move it around and start to understand. So here is now the torso, there is the other artwork. So let's undo that because we don't want to do that. But if I go back to the mouth here and I want to nudge it, looking at the arrow keys, if I hold down Alt or Option and then hit the down arrow key, that's going to nudge it forward essentially 1/1000th of a layer in front, and now that pulls it in front. Now I can repeat the same thing for the eyes. Hold down Option. Oh, you can only do one at a time, so let's do it. Option. Oh, and I forgot. So I click here, and with the mouth, I got lucky. I put my mouse back. We have to enter, put our mouse up here to enter it. So now I go up here, and to nudge it, Alt or Option, down arrow, and now we can even see in the Z view how it's moving. We still have that one eye right over here that I want to nudge. So I have to put mouse enter. Red frame is showing up over the stage, not on the timeline, not any of the other windows. It has to be over the artwork. And I hold down Alt or Option, and down arrow pulls it forward. So that now locates my artwork. So it's in front. And we can see, because we had animation turned on, it generated a keyframe. So nudging is something that we can use when we are animating, because we will want to do it periodically as we do our animation. Because let's say I go to this arm and I'm going to rotate that. Oh, whoa, wait. Well, maybe he's reaching behind his back and he's going to pull out a gun or something, because that would be appropriate for this character. But if I want the arm to go in front, well, to better illustrate these things, what we're going to do is just collapse some layers so I have a little bit more room to work. And I am going to create a peg to control the whole character. And this will be my master P. my master peg, and all of these layers are going to be a child of that. Because now it's much easier to control my timeline. I can just click right there, insert an opening keyframe, function F6, go to the end here, function F5. That extends my whole animation out. So now, if I go to this arm and animate the arm so it goes behind, so we can see how now it's going to tween the arm behind. Now I'll bring the arm back out. And this time, I want to move the arm so the hand goes in front. But to bring the hand in front, then we're going to have to nudge it. So if we select this layer, and I'm going to, now it works best to make sure that we hit F6 each time we're switching and animating something, so we add in a full complement of keyframes. So right here we can see it didn't add in all the keyframes, and if I twirl it down, we'll see that only that arm is considering being animated. So sometimes it will work fine. Other times you will get weird glitchy things happening if you don't add keyframes at each and every pose. But yeah, we can roll with it here. So okay, now we have the arm right here. And if I now go out, so let's see, we're behind, back out. Now here, I will go to this part of the arm, and I'll move it back in with my cursor in the stage area, not on the timeline, not in the top view, in the stage area, Alt Option, and then hit the down arrow. It pulls the hand in front. So we can see the arm. Whoa, we get some weird, so we're getting some weird, oh wait, yeah, see that's not working really well when we do it that way. So let's do some undos. The arm is out here, and again, this is why if I do function F6, now the arm is straight, and this time I will go here, and function F6, and now I'm going to click on the arm, rotate it. My stage is the active area, hold down Alt, pull forward, and this time we will see how it now is behaving. So it's important when we do this to add in keyframes. So now if I look, I'll see, look at that, all the keyframes there, except right here for that last one. So we never added that one in. And this is also why it's useful to have a control peg when we're moving the character. So now you can see how that arm moves in front. Now if I were to animate this arm, it's going to be behind if we were to work with that one. But what the control peg really allows us to do is, now if my character is here, and if I want to move my character over, I have this opening keyframe. So now if I go to frame 20 and use the animation tool, move my character over. Now that's not going to be a logical move because he didn't move his legs, but we can see how the whole character is moving. Now, a little problem that we're going back since we already keyframed right there, so then it's like, whoa, that's kind of freaky. So this is where when we're kind of figuring out the movement, we really want to figure the pose-to-pose actions as we're trying to develop what is happening with the characters. We probably don't want that slide going on right there. Now, what I could do is try and figure out how I want my character to move at this point. So we have this full keyframe there. I'm just going to go behind, and there's a lot of things available to us. So if I grab the leg here, pull this leg out, grab this other leg, pull this out, grab this leg, bend at the knee. Actually, I'm going to pull this leg here, and this leg here, and we may think, oh my gosh, I broke his foot. Whoa, that's painful going on right there. But instead what I'm going to do, so we can see how the legs are bending, because I'm going to have them both bend, and then he's going to move. But as soon as he starts the bend here, what I'm going to do is click on this foot. If I go under animation, I will see that we have some options available to us. One of those is flip. So if I flip it horizontally, the foot has now moved. Now, oh yeah, see, that's problematic. That's not something I want. But if I go into the layer and see where that leg is animating, and I go to that foot, what I can do to the prior frame is say, you know, I don't want that to be a motion keyframe. I want it to be stop motion, so it just does a flip. Oh, and now it's going back. I forgot because these are flipped as well. So let's go into this one, and well, notice how we can, well, yeah, that's kind of awkward. We need to move the other foot. So as the leg is bending to here, what I really need is this foot to rotate, because I'm trying to start to create the movement. Oh, and that foot is continually flipped. Now, the good part is there's a keyboard shortcut for that, and it's the number key 4. If you have a numeric keypad, it's really slick. So he's going to turn his foot and do that. Now, it seems like his body is floating in space. And this is where it's really nice. So when we get to this bend, what we can do is select the whole peg and pull the character down. And looks like I need to pull down a little bit more. Now I could have turned on keyframing or onion skinning. So we're here. Oh, maybe we don't want to be quite that far down. So I'm trying to line up the feet a little bit here. And let's see, so we were here, and the big part is start to look at the heels. Looks like this leg probably needs to bend a little bit more for it to line up, and if we zoom in on the keyframe, we can even start to use onion skinning as a guide for how we want things to position and line up. So now it starts to look like he's squatting down because he's going to move. He brought the hand behind, and then we can, now we're back to this pose here. I feel like now we need to be doing something more dramatic. So maybe at this point, we'll move that arm up, move that up, and with the head, we can do a little tilt of the head. Now, we'll notice that the arms, the head, all of that, they're not connected onto the torso. So if we animate the torso, we are going to find that we will need to reposition those objects as well. Or we select all of those objects. Whoop. I wanted to do a little turn. Now, one thing is when I'm working with a group, I can move here. If I'm using the animation tool or transform tool with animate turned on, I can do a temporary relocation of the pivot point for this group, since this is now different groups. So now we can pull the whole thing down. So we really have kind of a interesting, let's turn off onion skinning and see what the whole character is doing. So as we finish right here, Just going to make sure there's a keyframe. I'm going to go out a couple frames. And this time I'm going to go into the head, and I want to turn the head down a little bit for my finish. So very quickly, once the character is rigged, we can start to animate it. Couple things to keep in mind is we have to pay attention to the orientation of the layers, the pivot points, and we're able to do layer nudging, adjusting their top-down view position so that we can pull layers in front or behind of each other, and that's keyframeable, so then your body parts can be moving in front and behind as necessary while you are animating. Returning to previous character, we're going to look at some other options that are available to us as we work with this. And what I'm really concerned about is the hand. So with this, we're going to zoom in a little bit so I can see easier and better what I'm doing. Right now I have one hand, but if I wanted to have a second hand that I could work with, I can add in a new drawing. So this is like doing frame by frame animation. So now if my character here, instead of just having the hand flat, let's go grab some colors here, and while I'm doing that, I'll go grab my outlines so I can work with that, and my brush. Let's see, how big is my brush? Not quite big enough. Trying to get so it's similar. I'll make a similar mark to what we had before. Grab the eraser. Can get rid of that. We don't need that there. All right, so now if I wanted my character to have a separate hand, well, not with the eraser this time, now back to the brush, so I can draw in what would be a different hand shape. So if I'm drawing this in, I'm going to turn on my light table because I do find that makes it a little bit easier while I'm working. And if I want to clean it up a little bit, oh, there we go. Took me a few tries to get my, whoa, a little too much on the eraser there. Because I like to use the eraser to help finesse my lines a little bit and give them, let's shrink the eraser down a little bit. It's being a little aggressive. So that way I can use this to create even more variation in the stroker lines while I'm working, so it looks a little more painted and drawn and less computery. Now if I go back to my paintbrush, remembering some of those paintbrush options, we'll try again. There's my paintbrush. What I want to choose is the paint behind option. So when I do that, if I grab the flash, and now while I'm painting, I'll see how it sits behind. So I can make my brush a little bit bigger just to speed up the process. So this way I don't have to fill what I am doing. I can just simply paint, and as long as I stay mostly within the lines, my existing artwork, or line artwork, will sit on top. So then that allows me to create what I want. Now I'm going to make another hand here, and maybe this hand is going to be a little bit different. So we'll click here, and so we're going to Brush feels really chunky all of a sudden, but we can clean that up with eraser. So, because I really don't mind drawing with the eraser almost as much as I draw with the paintbrush, because that gives me a different quality in the lines. So now we're getting kind of our thumbs up. And once again, grab the paintbrush, paint behind, grab the skin color. So this can be a useful way to make different body parts that will help give us the gestures that we're looking for. But we can also use it as a way to even think about storing props in what we're doing, or changing eyes, or changing mouths, or even having entire heads that we cycle through. So we'll look at that when we go back to the other character rig. But for now, this is going to give us some options, because when I look here and see what I have, let's zoom out. So currently now, this character is here. Let's pull it down. This is, dreaming of larger display, which I don't have. And if I want to change which drawing is shown here, it's in my library. I click on library, and I'll see inside the hand, the original hand, the first alternate that we drew, the second alternate that I drew, or no hand. So we can start right here, first frame, and we can see here it goes, and now it cycles through to that next drawing. We can cycle it back to that hand, and that change will stay with it. So even if we are animating, so I'll go here and do my function key F6, inserting in a keyframe. And now further out in time, we'll go out to frame 20 right here. Function F6 inserts my keyframe, and we'll bend there, put a little bend here, and so the arm is moving up. And now right here, we've got a few more frames. Put in our F6. Now I want to just roll up a little bit more, and on this frame right here, I'm going to cycle to my other hand. Now besides moving it in the library palette where it says drawing substitution, I can also use the square bracket keys on the keyboard. So right above the return or enter key, you'll see the square brackets. So I can easily use the keys to cycle through. Now if I decide, okay, that's long enough with that, and I want to go back to the original, I can do that. So we can see how it changes. We're able to change that drawing. We're able to do a drawing substitution here. So we swap out which artwork we're looking at. So we can do this for feet, hands, eyes. If we have a character that's blinking, we set up the different drawings of the eyes, and we can cycle through them as needed to make our characters blink in a natural and believable style. So this works with hand-drawn artwork, and it also works with photographic artwork. In Photoshop, previously we had one hand, and I've gone and taken the liberty to create a couple of different hands, each one with one more finger than the rest. So we can see how those hands have all been constructed. Now I'll just turn those layers on because I want them on, and save that. And going back into Harmony, we're going to import that file. So we'll import the photo reg PSD, create layers based on file names, vectorize it, click OK, groups as layers, not as a single image, clamp the color to alpha, hit OK, and hit OK, and some magic has happened. Now if I look here, I see those different hands. Now the rest of the body's not showing up yet because it doesn't exist for all of the frames. So we can extend that out, or yeah, maybe not yet. First, let's go to frame 1, and we're going to set up some pivot points and do a little bit of rigging. So this would be the lower arm, so I can move that over. And then we can realize here's the hand, so I'll move that pivot point over. And lower arm, upper arm, and torso, so we'll put it right about here. So there's the body. Now we'll join the arm pieces. So the hand goes to the lower arm goes to the upper arm, and then I can even add a peg. And this peg, as I put it in, we'll give it a name, and this will be our photo dash P. So the dash P tells us that's a peg. Oh, I forgot an O, but I can live with that for now. Add those layers to it, and finally, with that peg selected, with the rotate tool, I can decide where I want to put it. Now, looking at this, we will see that we do have an issue going on with that arm, similar to what we saw in the other project, which is the hand. I want that hand on top. So to accomplish that, I am going to, I can even just delete those for now. I don't really need to see them. I'll just look at this one hand. If I turn off animate, and now if I go to the hand and decide I want that hand to be in front, so we're going to adjust that top view. So again, artwork layer needs to be active. We have the hand selected, and then Alt and down arrow, because I'm pulling it forward in that top view. So that now just moved that hand so it's on top. Now I'm going to turn animate back on. So now when I animate things, it's all going to behave. Go back out here. Function F5 extends my frames out. And now with my whole character active and selected, go back to frame 1 and just move it over. All right, so this character is reaching out, gives a thumbs up. And what we can do right here, we're going to time our reach out so it goes up a little bit later. So this is going to get it close. So function F6. Actually, we'll just click on all of it, function F6. Then click on the arm and rotate. Let's put a little bend. So it's bending. But maybe I want to change which drawing is there. So we have the hand here, and just as it gets up to here, let's select the hand. Whoop, not that. And so we go to 4, go over 2 frames, and now we can cycle through. There's my 3, and I'll go 2 more frames. There's my 2, So we can see how it's changing. And now at this point I want to bend the arm more. So function F6, insert that keyframe and bend it up. And I want to change this to the 1, which we can look in the library and find which one it is. Right there. And now this time I want to go away from the 1 and go to the Spider-Man or heavy metal, depending on what you want to call it. So now we have that, and put a little more movement in to finish it. So we can see we can use photographic artwork, hand-drawn artwork, a lot of possibilities as we roll forward with this. So we can create different qualities within the animation. Going back into the character drawing, I have a few extra amenities to it. So while the character is here, what we can do is decide that he wants to blink his eyes. So I can now select that layer that I'm working with, and I can just use the transform animation tool, and I can now move to a different frame. Now I can go down a layer and repeat that same process. So we're here, he's going to blink, hold that for 2 frames, so 1, 2, and now with that I will then go back to the other eye. So I'm substituting it using the square bracket keys to navigate through that. Now let's decide that right here, and with it, it's repositioned so I can see a little bit of what's going on. So I want, when the arm goes in front here, I'm going to switch to a different set of eyes that I have. So that will go forward. Let's see, which one is it? That one right there. And we can go down a layer and repeat that same process. So now we go to the super open eye with it. And if we look close at the character, we'll see that there's even additional mouths that we have to play with. Now the mouths that are provided happen to correspond to the different phonetic mouth shapes that we need when a character is going to be speaking, which is something that we will look at down the road. Okay, I really like that mouth for that, so I think I'm not going to use it here. We'll go more for the smile here, and then with the eyes wide open, then we'll go for that whole open mouth. And so going to reach the hand behind here, and when the hand comes back out, I'm going to even take this right hand here and substitute that to a different item. So now as he reached behind, hey, look it, I got a gun. And now he's going to bring it in front. So what I want to do when I go across here, now it's not going to be totally correct because it will show the wrong hand, but we could, in this case, we could insert for this hand right here. Now we'll insert a keyframe, F6 for that, and then I will go over 1 frame, insert another keyframe, and this time we will just do a quick flip, and I don't know if it's, nope, don't want 5, I wanted 4, because now technically he broke his wrist because the hand is backwards. Oh, and now we Alright, so we got some weird flip going on. So maybe flip's not going to give us what we need as the hand rotates through here. But gives us something. And, well, you know, we could substitute a hand again because it's actually a magic hand that we have going on with it. And we can go to that next fateful instrument that Mr. Wick likes to use. He'll use anything in his disposal to no, we don't want that. Alright, well, maybe we don't want some of the flips, but you get the idea of how it's working. So we can do substitutions. We've changed his face, changed the eyes, changed the position of the character. It's been rigged. So there's a lot of possibilities moving forward here as you work on animating your characters. So I'm just inserting a keyframe right there, insert another keyframe right here, and I'm just gonna leave it right there, and I'm going to just go a couple more frames, insert another keyframe. Actually, I want to insert a keyframe for everything, so function F6. And with that, I want to, well, okay, so looks like we have to, if we go past here, we're going to have to do a little nudging. So I'm just going to leave it at that point, or maybe we'll just bring the arm back out. So then we'll animate it like that. So we just bring it back out. So we have some movement going on. It's happened pretty quick right there, but that's all right. So now I'm just unhappy with this arm staying stationary so long, so we'll let that arm kind of lead from the elbow and shoulders so it breaks a little bit. So as the arm goes to here, and now I'm going to bring it out a little bit more, put in some bend, put in a little more movement going on. So now the character is really starting to take on some personality in life. And we could even go from here. We'll do a full keyframe, and we're going to end the artwork here by bringing it back, go on to each of the eyes, and I'm going to go for the closed mouth. The hand, we will drop back to the original hand and rotate, 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 rotate. So it really is just a matter of move and position body parts. And I'm going to, let's see, we're right here. And right here, I'm going to, so we know, we'll make sure that there's a keyframe right there. I'm going to go over just one frame with that and unbreak his ankle here, and this time we'll flip it so it's back out to where it was. And because it happens over one frame, then we also need to clear up those keyframes for that foot as well. And remembering 4 and 5 allow us to do flips, so then that becomes pretty easy. 4 horizontal, 5 vertical. And now we'll just zoom out and watch the whole thing. Looks like he's starting to sing, and then returns back to kind of a grumpy, static, resting position.